We spend a lot of time focusing on the coverage that comes out of Fox News and outlets like it. Fox News specifically because of its impact, how much of an influence it has on our political conversations, particularly in certain populations in America. And one member of the Fox News audience that is uniquely interesting to think about in the way that he's impacted by Fox News coverage is Donald Trump himself, right? We see on Truth Social when someone says something he doesn't like, sometimes he'll lash out at them. And so what's been increasingly discussed on Fox News, but clearly isn't breaking through the impenetrable wall of stubbornness that surrounds Trump's brain, is the message on Fox News. Even they are panicking about how Trump cannot seem to craft an effective campaign against Vice President Harris. His last speech in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, he not only did his normal attacks against Vice President Harris's the personality, right, the laugh stuff against her intelligence, but escalated it, and now he's going after her look, saying he believes himself to be better looking than her. And so this is causing Fox commentators to just scratch their head and express to the audience they don't know what's going on with Trump, or they do, and it's because Trump is Trump. So we'll look at a few different examples of what I'm talking about. First, Brit Hume.
Down. Okay, so you heard me talking with Senator Vance there about where they are in the polls. He says they've got the message, they're going to win. Here's another Fox News poll we have out this week. How do you feel about how things are going in the country? 65% say they're dissatisfied. So, Britt, knowing that and knowing in this setup, Trump is the challenger, why is he not doing better?
Because he's Trump. I mean, the truth of the matter is...
And the show is over. Britt has dropped the mic.
Brutal. I'll play more, but brutal. Not what Trump wants to hear. He likes to believe that because he's Trump, he's so beloved. Brit Hume saying, if you put a generic Republican in there, with people's stance on how they believe things are going, we've talked about how the governance has been really effective with the Biden-Harris administration, but a lot of people are upset, and you could run a much more effective campaign if it were anybody but Trump.
You get down to it, the past 8 to 10 years have been about Donald Trump. Everything's been about Donald Trump. I don't think that the Democrats would have let Joe Biden get as far as he did if the party hadn't been confident that the Republicans were going to nominate Donald Trump again, which the Republicans did. The fact that Biden was doing even as well as he did until the very end is testament to the fact that Donald Trump, he has a very hard, solid base of support, but it never gets above about 40 to 45%, maybe a little more at best. So his weakness is the predicate for our politics going back three elections. He was able to surmount Hillary Clinton, a uniquely unpopular opponent.
Right. And again, weakness, I think, might be one of the terms Trump least wants to identify with. Here's a question before playing more, because it is interesting seeing people who have propped up Trump for so long, and I'm saying that in a general sense when talking about the Fox News platform, now grappling with, wait, are we going to lose this because the guy we've apologized for insisted on being the candidate again, and his base is enough of the party to make that an inevitability, but not enough of the country to make victory in the general inevitable? So that's interesting by itself. But another thought was popping into my mind. We are not taking it for granted. We're going to work our tails off. But I do want to sometimes think a little bit longer down the road than just to November. And let's say we win. What comes after that with Maga? Because, sure, in the Electoral College, Trump pulled off a victory in 2016. Brit Hume made a correct point that regardless of if you agree with this or not, Hillary Clinton was someone that Trump was able to effectively run against in a way that he's not able to against Kamala Harris, as we're learning. And so he won that. But then 2018, disaster for Republicans. 2020, disaster for Republicans. 2022 did not go like they were wanting it to go and didn't follow historical trends. 2023, special elections, off-year elections, have been super great for Democrats, outperforming the polls time and time again. And then let's say Democrats win in 2024. That's a streak of losses you rarely see in American politics. And any rational party would then say, all right, the thing that has characterized our party for the years that we've lost over and over, that needs to no longer be a part of it. We're going to moderate. You might remember after the Mitt Romney loss to Barack Obama in 2012, the Republican Party commissioned a report, wanted to analyze what can we do differently? Can we reach out to different populations? Can we moderate our message? And then that went out the window with Trump, obviously. But a rational party would do that. But it seems like the MAGA media echo chamber is so strong that it may not allow a rational response to loss. We saw after 2022, MAGA say it's because they weren't MAGA enough that they underperformed in those midterms. So tell me in the comments, do you think post 2024 we'll see a more normal political reaction where MAGA is pushed aside a little bit and no longer is it so much about this Trumpism sort of thing, even if Trump's not the guy? Or are they going to continue siding with the Marjorie Taylor Greens? Is it going to be a sort of Vivek next generation, J.D. Vance? Or are they going to try to move on from that? That's the thing I really don't know. It seems the base might not allow the Republican Party to go on. Or the base might sort of evaporate, disengage from politics because Trump is no longer the guy and they're uninterested. We'll have to see. I have come down with an illness. I think I got it at the Trump rally over the weekend. If you want to support the show that comes out in sickness and in health, you can do so by clicking that subscribe button. I think that might help me get better as well. Back to the video. Here's more.
On the issues, who do you trust more to handle these issues? If you break down in the polls, the big issues, the economy, inflation, immigration, slightly ahead in Israel war, go to the former president.
Yeah, by big margins, and particularly immigration. But look, we're in a moment where the issues are not going to matter for the next several days. I think the Trump-Vance ticket is smart to go to Pennsylvania where they will get local coverage, but they're not going to be able to argue against, shouting into the wind as this convention goes. But you're absolutely right. When the Democrats finish on Thursday night, if Trump wants to win, then he's got to have a disciplined approach to keep the focus on those three big issues. I've been shocked, frankly, that in the last several weeks, the last 3 weeks since the July 21st decision by President Biden, that the Trump campaign has not been as focused as it should be. Think about this. They could have come out and said, Kamala Harris cast the deciding vote, broke the tie in the Senate for the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan that even Democrat economists said, if you pass that bill, it's going to cause inflation. Then she provided the key vote to break the tie to pass the FY22 budget with hundreds of billions of dollars of additional spending, and then turned around and did it again with the next year's budget. They could have said 3 times she has struck out by voting for additional spending that caused the inflation that we've all had to deal with, and yet relatively silent on the issue.
Senator Vance did go out to 3 different...
So the notable part there, him saying he's been shocked at the lack of focus because we've spent hours on this show talking about the inflation talking points that come out of MAGA. Set that aside for the time being. But I think her casting the deciding vote on some of these popular and effective pieces of legislation is a good thing for her to tout. But the general point from Karl Rove there is correct. There's a lack of focus that's causing the headlines about the campaigning of Trump to be about him saying he's more attractive than Kamala Harris, and not any policy issue that, regardless of if we agree with people's stance on it, could presumably help Trump's campaign a lot more than attacking Kamala Harris personally. And I know this is a thing we keep circling back to, but it's because this is right now the consequential issue in this election. Will Trump do anything other than be himself? And if not, if he continues to be himself, hopefully that means victory for Democrats. And the other thought I keep having is, do you think he's not being told? Because Trump watches Fox News constantly. He has to be hearing this analysis. Is he being told by advisors? We covered Don Jr. saying, I may or may not have been having those conversations with my dad, referring to trying to get him to not do the pettiness. Is he being told and ignoring the advice, or is he so isolated and around so many yes men and women that he just doesn't know that this is causing such a disaster for his campaign. When he says, we're up in the polls, I just got a poll this morning, we're crushing Kamala Harris, just completely detached from reality, is that him being told, you're doing great, Donnie, by people showing him ridiculous right-wing polls? Or is he making it up to try to continue portraying himself as the winner's winner, no matter what the facts say? I don't know. It could go either way. Because I do know he has the tendency to surround himself with yes men. And I do know that he also has a tendency, regardless of how things are going, to lie about how they are, to say he's doing really well. And a part of it is he probably thinks he knows better than everyone. And again, Chris Christie, I keep coming back to, as someone who knew Trump for some time, worked with him in these settings, said publicly that when Trump's desperate, he goes back to his instincts. He doesn't trust other people's advice on a campaign, and his instincts are these ridiculous attacks. You have one more Fox News moment here.
You think about the reality. She is saying to the American voter, I'm with you. I think a lot of these big corporations have huge profits, and I'm going to stand with you against price gouging. I'm going to stand with you in terms of child care tax credits. That's a message more than an economic policy. So you can attack the proposal and its minutia, but I think the message to the voter is pretty effective.
You know, that's a really interesting one, because I think campaigns a lot of times are about who's proactively putting things out and whose entire campaign has to be reactionary. And the reason why Trump was able to be as successful as he's been, with the failures, but even as successful as he was able to be in politics, is because he was so good at grabbing the media attention and then doing with it what he liked to. And so the provocative moments would then shine light on moments that actually were able to compel people. He did have a more, it was fake, but a more pro-working class rhetoric before, and was a little bit more concise on articulating policy, as, again, disingenuous as it was. But now with Harris entering the race and then coming out, and she'll respond in a general sense. She talked about how if you try to feel higher up, or if you try to be a leader by beating people down, you're a coward. Lifting people up is how you lead, right? So that was a reference to Trump, obviously, but she didn't even say his name. There's this being in the driver's seat feeling that the Kamala Harris campaign has right now, where she's driving the media narrative in a way that we haven't seen a Democrat do in a long time. Trump always had the media narrative, and the Democrat would have to just be responding to everything, which then allows Trump to own the messaging. And here, what that Fox News pundit is talking about is when Kamala Harris talks about going after price gouging, and Maga is in the position of having to go around the clock coverage of how her policy proposal on that is ridiculous and is communist and whatever. All the American people hear is that she's wanting to address high prices and MAGA's mad about it. Most people aren't really diving into whether or not the line 3 detail of her plan would be effective or not. Instead, again, as the Fox News pundit pointed out, that contrast is clear between who wants to do something about that issue and who doesn't. And that's what Trump was always able to do. Even as he was lying, in his case, about the border or about the economy, the response from Democrats would make it seem sometimes like Trump cared about those issues and the Democrats didn't. Or they were against doing something and Trump was for it. Again, bogus, but politically strategic. And now that's flipped. It's a very interesting phenomenon. Obviously, the DNC is happening now, so that's why you see them in that setting. A very big week. Hopefully you watch my coverage of it. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want to support the work this show does in such a big historic week, you can do so by clicking the join button below.